Marcus Chen stood beneath the golden awning of the Grand Meridian Hotel, his weathered hands adjusting the pristine white gloves that marked his position. The evening air carried the scent of jasmine from the rooftop gardens above, mixing with the distant hum of Manhattan traffic on Fifth Avenue below. For 23 years, he had opened these brass-handled doors for guests, watching fortunes rise and fall through the revolving entrance of luxury. Tonight felt different. A tension in his chest he couldn't quite name. The doorman's uniform, pressed to perfection, concealed a secret that would soon unravel. Behind those tired eyes lived memories of boardrooms and billion-dollar decisions, of a life deliberately abandoned for something more meaningful than money. Few knew the truth. Marcus Chen wasn't just the doorman. He was the owner of the entire hotel empire standing behind him. A sleek black Mercedes pulled up to the curb with aggressive speed, tires screeching slightly as the driver barely avoided the valet station. Marcus stepped forward with the practiced grace of decades of service, his smile warm and genuine despite the car's reckless arrival at his doors. The rear window rolled down to reveal a woman in her late 30s, dripping in designer labels that screamed new money rather than whispered old wealth. Her face was buried in her phone, fingers flying across the screen with urgency, completely ignoring the man who had already opened her door with quiet dignity. "Watch the Birkin bag," she snapped, without looking up from her device. Marcus carefully steadied the orange leather handbag as she stepped out. The woman's Louboutin heels clicked against the marble with sharp, impatient strikes. She still hadn't made eye contact with the man holding her car door. "Mrs. Victoria Ashford," the valet whispered to Marcus with a subtle eye roll. "Checked in yesterday for the charity gala tomorrow night in the Diamond Ballroom. She's already complained about the thread count in her suite 3 times, demanded we replace all the pillows with hypoallergenic alternatives at 2 a.m. Marcus nodded slowly, filing away the information with the patience of experience. He'd dealt with difficult guests before. It came with the territory of luxury hospitality. What separated the truly wealthy from the merely rich was often kindness, a lesson he'd learned during his own journey from poverty to prosperity. Victoria Ashford represented everything he'd grown to despise about his former life: the hollow pursuit of status and the treatment of service workers as invisible. Still, his role tonight wasn't to judge, but to observe and serve. The real test would come in how she treated those who couldn't fight back. "You there?" Victoria barked, finally acknowledging Marcus with a dismissive wave. "I need these shopping bags brought to my suite immediately, and I mean immediately. I have a conference call with Tokyo in 15 minutes that cannot be delayed. Do you understand, or do I need to speak slower for you to comprehend?" Her tone dripped with condescension that made nearby guests visibly uncomfortable. Marcus maintained his composed expression, though his jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Of course, ma'am. I'll have these delivered to your room right away," he replied evenly. "Not your room, my suite. Presidential Suite 4200. Do try to remember that distinction, and for heaven's sake, use the service elevator. I don't want you cluttering the main one." She thrust 7 shopping bags at him with such force he had to step back. Each bag bore the logo of stores where a single purchase exceeded most people's rent. Without waiting for confirmation, she strutted into the lobby, already yelling into her phone. The lobby's crystal chandelier cast dancing shadows across the marble as Marcus watched her go. Other staff members shot him sympathetic glances. They'd all experienced her wrath by now. Sarah, the front desk manager, mouthed, "I'm sorry," from behind her computer screen. Even the other guests seemed embarrassed by Victoria's public display of disrespect. Marcus collected the shopping bags, noting their excessive weight with quiet observation. He could have revealed his identity right then, could have put her in her place, but that wasn't why he worked the door despite owning the building above. Years ago, he'd made a promise to his late wife on her deathbed. "Never forget where we came from," she'd whispered, her hand in his. "Never let wealth make you forget the value of every single person." So 3 times a week, Marcus Chen traded his executive suite for a doorman's post, keeping himself grounded in the reality of how his staff and guests truly behaved. The service elevator hummed as Marcus rode up with Victoria's excessive shopping haul. Inside the bags, he glimpsed designer dresses, still tagged at thousands of dollars each, shoes that cost more than his doorman's salary would earn in a month, jewelry boxes from Cartier and Van Cleef & Arpels stacked without care. The excess felt almost obscene when he thought of the city's homeless just blocks away. His own journey from immigrant dishwasher to billionaire hotelier had taught him perspective, something that apparently unlimited money couldn't buy for people like Mrs. Ashford. The elevator chimed at the 42nd floor, the hotel's most exclusive level. He knocked professionally on suite 4200, waiting patiently despite her urgency demands. "It's about time!" Victoria's voice screeched before the door even fully opened. She grabbed the bags from his hands without acknowledgement or gratitude. "Wait!" she commanded as he turned to leave, her eyes narrowing with fresh demands. "I need you to run back down and get my dry cleaning from the concierge. They were supposed to deliver it an hour ago, but apparently competence is too much to ask. And stop by the restaurant. Tell them I want dinner sent up at exactly 7:30. Not 7:25, not 7:35, exactly 7:30, understand? I want the Dover sole, but tell the chef if it's not prepared perfectly, he's fired. No butter, no oil, no seasoning except exactly 3 grams of sea salt. Include asparagus, but only the tips. I don't eat the stems like some peasant. And bring me a bottle of the 1995 Chateau Margaux from the wine cellar. Make sure it's properly decanted for exactly 45 minutes before serving." Marcus stood quietly, mentally noting each demand with professional detachment. "Also," she continued, barely pausing for breath in her litany of requirements, "I need fresh roses in my suite. The current ones are already wilting after 1 day." "Ma'am, I'm the doorman," Marcus explained gently, his voice remaining respectful despite everything. "Perhaps I could call the concierge service for you, and they could handle—" "Did I ask for your suggestions?" Victoria interrupted, her face flushing with indignation. "I gave you direct instructions, and I expect them to be followed without question. Or are you too incompetent to handle basic tasks that I've clearly outlined?" Her phone buzzed, and she glanced at the screen with obvious irritation. This hotel is supposed to be 5-star, yet the service is absolutely abysmal. I'm beginning to wonder if the management has any standards whatsoever. "Wait here," she commanded, disappearing into her suite's massive bedroom. Marcus could hear her rummaging through drawers, muttering complaints under her breath. She returned moments later with a crumpled $20 bill held between 2 fingers. "Here's your tip, though honestly, you haven't earned even that with this lazy attitude." She thrust the money at him like feeding a stray dog she found distasteful. "I expect everything I requested to be handled within the next 30 minutes. If you cannot manage these simple tasks, I'll speak to your supervisor about replacement. I'm sure there are plenty of people who would appreciate having your job. People who actually understand the meaning of proper service and respect for guests." The irony of her words, lecturing about respect while demonstrating none, wasn't lost on Marcus. He looked at the $20 bill, then back at her face, making a decision. "Keep your money, Mrs. Ashford," he said quietly, his tone still professional but firm. "I'll make sure the concierge is notified of your requests through proper channels. Someone from guest services will attend to your needs according to hotel protocol." Victoria's eyes widened. Clearly, she wasn't accustomed to anyone refusing her money. "How dare you refuse my generosity? Do you have any idea who I am?" "I know exactly who you are," Marcus replied, his voice carrying a weight she didn't recognize. "You're a guest at the Grand Meridian, and you'll be treated with the same excellence that we extend to every person who walks through our doors, regardless of their behavior. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have other duties to attend to this evening. Guest services will contact you shortly about your requests. Good evening, ma'am." He turned and walked toward the elevator with calm, measured steps, leaving Victoria Ashford standing in her doorway, shocked into momentary silence. The elevator doors closed on her expression of disbelief and growing anger. Marcus allowed himself the smallest smile as the car descended toward the lobby. He'd learned long ago that dignity couldn't be purchased with any amount of money, and respect wasn't something demanded. It was something earned through character. Tonight's lesson was just beginning, and Mrs. Ashford had no idea what was coming. Back in the lobby, Marcus resumed his position at the entrance doors, greeting arriving guests with the same warmth he'd shown for over 2 decades. A young couple with wide eyes and modest luggage received his full attention, their obvious excitement about staying at the Grand Meridian touching his heart. "First time in New York?" he asked kindly, holding the door as they entered. "Yes, sir. We saved for 3 years for our honeymoon," the young man beamed. Marcus felt the familiar warmth that reminded him why he loved this work. These were the moments that mattered, genuine human connection across all boundaries. He made a mental note to have champagne and strawberries sent to their room, a small gesture that would cost the hotel nothing but mean everything to them. Behind him, he heard the elevator chime and knew before turning who had arrived. Victoria Ashford's angry footsteps announced her presence like thunder before a storm. "You!" she shrieked across the elegant lobby, her voice echoing off marble columns. Guests turned in shock as she stormed toward Marcus, her face red with rage. "How dare you walk away from me? I gave you explicit instructions. I've been calling guest services for 10 minutes with absolutely no response. This is completely unacceptable, and you will personally handle my requests immediately." The lobby fell silent, all eyes now fixed on the unfolding confrontation. Marcus turned slowly, his expression neutral despite the public spectacle she was creating. "Ma'am, as I explained, I've notified the appropriate staff about your needs. Someone will assist you shortly. I'm currently attending to other guests." He gestured to the young honeymoon couple, who looked uncomfortable witnessing the scene. Victoria barely glanced at them, dismissing their presence as completely irrelevant. "These people can wait. I am a platinum member, and I demand priority service." Sarah, the front desk manager, rushed over to intervene before the situation escalated further. "Mrs. Ashford, I apologize for any confusion. Let me personally assist you with—" "I don't want your help," Victoria snapped, cutting her off mid-sentence viciously. "I want this man to do his job properly and follow my instructions exactly. Is that really too much to ask in a hotel that charges $3,000 per night?" Other guests began whispering, some pulling out phones to record the dramatic confrontation. Marcus noticed the general manager, Richard Torres, emerging from his office with concern. Richard had worked with Marcus for 15 years and knew the owner's dual identity, but he also understood that Marcus's undercover arrangement was strictly confidential. The situation was becoming delicate. Intervention was needed without revealing the truth. "Perhaps we could discuss this more privately," Richard suggested diplomatically. But Victoria was far beyond reason, fueled by entitlement and unchecked anger. "Private? Why should I be private about incompetence and terrible service? Everyone in this lobby deserves to know how poorly this establishment treats valued guests. This doorman has been rude, dismissive, and completely unprofessional from the start. I want him fired immediately, or I will ensure this hotel's reputation is destroyed. Do you know who my husband is? He sits on the board of Ashford Industries. One phone call from me and your corporate bookings will disappear overnight." Marcus remained perfectly still, his hands clasped behind his back professionally. He'd heard threats like this countless times over the years from insecure people, those who wielded perceived power like weapons because they had nothing else substantial. True power, he'd learned, was never something you had to announce or threaten with. Richard's face remained diplomatically neutral, though his eyes flickered with controlled frustration. "I assure you, Mrs. Ashford, we take all guest concerns seriously and will investigate—" "Investigate? Investigate?" Victoria's voice reached a pitch that made people wince. "There's nothing to investigate. I'm telling you exactly what happened right now. This man refused my tip, refused to follow my instructions, and walked away from me. He showed me blatant disrespect, and I will not tolerate being treated like garbage." The irony of her statement hung heavy in the air. She was describing her own behavior. Marcus caught the eye of Miguel, the evening valet, who shook his head in disbelief. The staff had gathered at a respectful distance, witnessing their beloved owner being verbally attacked. They knew who Marcus really was, and their restraint in not defending him was admirable. "Furthermore," Victoria continued, now addressing the growing crowd of onlookers directly, "I demand to speak with the owner of this establishment immediately. Not managers, not staff. I want whoever owns the Grand Meridian to hear personally about this disgraceful treatment. Someone needs to take responsibility for hiring people who clearly don't belong in hospitality." Richard and Marcus exchanged the briefest of glances, a silent communication years in the making. This was the moment Marcus had been waiting for, though he'd never wished for it. "Ma'am, the owner is not currently available," Richard stated carefully, technically truthful. "Then get him on the phone. I don't care if it's midnight. This cannot wait. I will not spend another moment in this hotel being disrespected by the help." She spat the last word with such venom that several staff members visibly recoiled. Marcus felt something shift inside him, a decision crystallizing after years of observation. He'd witnessed countless interactions during his time working incognito at the doors, seen the best and worst of humanity parade through the brass-framed entrance. But Victoria Ashford represented a particular type of cruelty that he couldn't ignore. The deliberate dehumanization of service workers, the weaponization of wealth against dignity. His wife's dying words echoed in his memory. "Use your power to protect the powerless." "I'll tell you what," Marcus said quietly, his voice cutting through Victoria's continued tirade. "Why don't we go somewhere private, and I'll make sure you speak with the owner personally. Would that be acceptable to you, Mrs. Ashford?" His tone remained perfectly respectful. Victoria paused, surprised that the doorman was finally seeming to acquiesce to her demands. "Finally, someone with some sense of proper service protocol and respect for guests. Yes, take me to wherever I can speak to your boss immediately, and I suggest you start preparing your resignation letter while we walk." She smirked triumphantly, convinced she'd won this battle through sheer force of will. Marcus gestured toward the executive corridor, away from the lobby's public areas. Richard started to follow, but Marcus gave him an almost imperceptible headshake. This was something he needed to handle personally, without witnesses or intermediaries. Victoria strutted ahead confidently, already rehearsing her complaints in her mind. They walked past the hotel's art collection, original Monets and Rothkos worth millions, pieces that Marcus had personally selected during estate auctions across Europe. Victoria didn't spare them a single glance, too absorbed in her righteous indignation. "I hope you understand the severity of what you've done tonight," she lectured. "People like you need to learn that there are consequences for disrespecting your betters. The service industry exists to serve people like me. That's the natural order of things. When I was growing up, my father taught me that you get respect by demanding it, and that money talks louder than anything else in this world." Marcus listened silently, finding her words more sad than offensive at this point. She'd been taught all the wrong lessons, raised to value dominance over dignity. They approached a mahogany door marked "Private Executive Offices Only" in gold lettering. Marcus produced a key card from his pocket and swiped it smoothly across the reader. The door opened into a hallway lined with photographs chronicling the Grand Meridian's history, black and white images of the hotel's construction in 1952, grand opening galas, celebrity guests from Golden Hollywood, presidential visits, and architectural awards. Victoria barely noticed, too focused on her upcoming confrontation with ownership. "How much longer? I don't have all night to waste wandering through back corridors. Just take me to the owner's office so I can get this resolved and return to my suite." Marcus opened another door, this one leading into a spacious executive suite. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Central Park, the city lights twinkling like earthbound stars. The office was elegantly furnished with understated luxury, no gaudy displays of wealth, just impeccable taste in furniture, art, and the kind of quality that whispered rather than shouted. A massive desk dominated the space, its surface organized with precision and care. Behind it hung a portrait of an elderly Asian couple in traditional dress, smiling warmly. "Wait here," Marcus instructed, gesturing to the leather chair facing the desk. "The owner will be with you momentarily to address all of your concerns personally." Victoria settled into the chair with an air of satisfaction, preparing her attack. "Good. And I suggest you use this time to clear out your locker. After what I'm about to tell your employer, you'll be lucky to get a job anywhere." Marcus walked behind the desk, his movements calm and deliberate. He removed his white doorman's gloves, folding them neatly on the desk's surface. Then he unbuttoned the doorman's coat, revealing a crisp white shirt beneath. Victoria watched with growing confusion, her confident expression beginning to falter. "What are you doing? I told you to get the owner, not make yourself comfortable." Marcus sat down in the executive chair, his hands folding on the desk before him. "Mrs. Ashford," he said quietly, "I am the owner. My name is Marcus Chen." The color drained from Victoria's face as Marcus's words settled into the silence. Her mouth opened and closed several times, but no sound emerged from her throat. She looked from Marcus to the portrait behind him, his parents, the hotel's founders, then to the nameplate on the desk that read, "Marcus Chen, chairman and owner." That's not possible," she finally whispered, her voice barely audible. "You're the doorman. I saw you. You were wearing the uniform, opening doors." Marcus leaned back in his chair, his expression neither angry nor triumphant, just patient. "I am the doorman," he confirmed, his voice steady and calm as morning light. 3 times a week, I work the front door of my hotel, alongside my staff. I've been doing it for over a decade, ever since my wife passed away. She believed that power without perspective leads to cruelty and disconnection. Working the door reminds me that every person deserves dignity regardless of their position. Victoria's shock was transforming into something else, panic perhaps, or desperate calculation. I didn't know. How was I supposed to know? You should have said something." Her voice was climbing again, but now it carried defensiveness rather than authority. "Would it have mattered?" Marcus asked quietly, the question hanging between them. "If I had been just a doorman, not the owner, would that have justified your behavior? Does my position now suddenly make my humanity worthy of your respect and consideration?" The question struck like a blade, cutting through her attempts at justification. Victoria's hands gripped the armrests of her chair, knuckles whitening with pressure. "I treat everyone with respect," she protested weakly, the lie obvious even to herself. "I'm a generous person. I offered you a tip, didn't I? I was trying to be nice." Marcus opened a drawer and pulled out a tablet, tapping the screen several times. "Let me show you something, Mrs. Ashford. We have security cameras throughout the hotel." He turned the screen toward her, and footage began playing from earlier that evening. There she was, snapping at the valet, dismissing the bellhop without acknowledgement, berating the front desk staff about pillow thread counts, demanding immediate service. The camera captured her treating the housekeeping staff like they were invisible obstacles, pushing past them in hallways without apology, complaining loudly about their presence. "These people work incredibly hard," Marcus said, his voice still controlled but firm. "Maria, the housekeeper you shoved aside on the 32nd floor, has 3 children. She works 2 jobs to support them while putting herself through nursing school. James, the bellhop you didn't bother to thank, is a veteran with a Purple Heart. Sarah at the front desk is a single mother who handles guest complaints with remarkable grace. Miguel, the valet, sends half his paycheck to his elderly parents in the Philippines. Every single person you've disrespected tonight has a story, a family, dreams, and dignity." Victoria watched the footage, her face cycling through emotions: shame, anger, defiance, fear. "Everyone has bad days," she said defensively, grasping for any excuse that might land. "You can't judge my entire character based on one stressful evening at a hotel. I'm under enormous pressure with the charity gala tomorrow. That's why I'm here." Marcus paused the video, his eyes meeting hers with an intensity that made her squirm. "A charity gala," he repeated slowly, letting the irony sink in like stones in water. You're here to attend an event raising money for underprivileged children and families, yet you've spent the past 24 hours treating working people with complete contempt. Do you not see the contradiction? Charity isn't about writing checks at fancy parties. Real compassion is how you treat the people you encounter when no one's watching, when there's no social benefit to kindness, no applause for basic human decency. Character is revealed in how we treat those who can do nothing for us in return. What do you want from me? Victoria's voice cracked, tears forming in her eyes. An apology? Fine. I'm sorry. I apologize for my behavior. Can we move past this now? Marcus shook his head slowly, his expression neither harsh nor forgiving, simply honest. I don't want anything from you, Mrs. Ashford. This isn't about punishment or revenge. But I do think you need to understand the impact of your actions on real people. Words like "I'm sorry" mean nothing if they don't come with genuine understanding and change. You've spent your entire stay making people feel small, invisible, and worthless. Those feelings don't disappear just because you've now discovered I own the building. The hurt you caused Sarah, Maria, James, and Miguel, they'll carry that home tonight. They'll remember how you made them feel less than human for doing honest work. No apology erases that, unless it comes from a place of true recognition and remorse. Victoria's tears spilled over, running mascara down her carefully made-up cheeks. I never thought about it that way, she admitted, her voice breaking with emotion. I was raised to believe that money meant superiority, that service workers were just, I don't know, background characters in my life story, not real people with real feelings. Marcus's expression softened slightly. This was the first genuine thing she'd said all night. That's the poison of privilege unchecked by empathy or wisdom, he said gently. I grew up with nothing, Mrs. Ashford. My parents came to America with 2 suitcases. My father worked as a dishwasher in this very building when it was owned by someone else. I watched him come home with burned hands and an aching back every single night. But he never complained, never treated anyone poorly, never lost his dignity or kindness. When I made my fortune in real estate development, I bought this hotel in his honor. Everything I have, everything I've built, started with watching my father wash dishes. Those background characters you dismiss, they're the foundation of everything meaningful. Victoria wiped her eyes, smearing makeup across her trembling hands and expensive sleeves. What happens now? Are you going to kick me out, ruin my reputation publicly? Marcus considered the question, his fingers drumming thoughtfully on the desk's polished surface. I'm going to offer you a choice, he said, after a long pause filled with tension. Tomorrow night, you're attending a charity gala in our Diamond Ballroom, correct? 500 guests, including some of New York's most influential philanthropists and socialites. You could go to that gala, write your check, take your photos, and learn nothing. Or you could spend tomorrow doing something that might actually change your perspective fundamentally. Victoria looked confused, uncertain where this proposal was leading or what it meant. What kind of something? I don't understand what you're asking me to do. Marcus pulled out his phone and sent a quick message before returning his attention. I want you to spend tomorrow working alongside my staff, as one of them. Working? You want me to work here? Like an employee? Disbelief colored her voice. Exactly like an employee, Marcus confirmed, his tone leaving no room for negotiation. 6 hours. You'll shadow different staff members, learn their jobs, understand their challenges. Housekeeping, front desk, room service, valet. You'll experience what they experience daily. You'll see what it's like to be invisible, to be yelled at, to be treated as less than. And maybe, just maybe, you'll learn something about yourself and others in the process. If you complete the 6 hours with genuine effort and an open mind, you can attend your gala tomorrow night with no further consequences from this incident. But if you refuse, or if you complete it with the same attitude you've shown tonight, I'll personally ensure that every detail of your behavior becomes public knowledge. The security footage, the staff testimonies, everything documented and shared widely. Your choice, Mrs. Ashford. Growth or consequences. What will it be? Victoria sat frozen, processing this impossible ultimatum that had materialized from nowhere. Pride warred with pragmatism on her face. She clearly hated the idea of manual labor, but the alternative of public humiliation terrified her even more than temporary discomfort. If I do this, if I work tomorrow, you'll forget everything that happened tonight? Marcus shook his head, correcting her misunderstanding with patient but firm clarity. I won't forget, and neither should you. That's not the point of this exercise. The goal isn't erasure, it's education, and hopefully transformation of perspective. You'll work tomorrow, and if you approach it with genuine humility and openness, you'll keep your dignity, your reputation, and perhaps gain something far more valuable. The ability to see people as human beings rather than as servants beneath your status. That's worth more than any amount of money you'll donate at tomorrow's gala. Real charity begins with how we treat the people right in front of us every day. After a long silence, punctuated only by the city sounds filtering through the windows, Victoria nodded slowly, defeated, but perhaps curious about this strange opportunity presented. Okay, she whispered, her voice small and stripped of its earlier aggression and entitlement. I'll do it. I'll work tomorrow. But I want you to know I'm not doing this because it doesn't matter why you're doing it, Marcus interrupted gently, but with absolute certainty. What matters is that you do it with an open heart and genuine willingness to learn. Be in the staff entrance at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. Wear comfortable clothes and shoes. Maria from housekeeping will be your first mentor. Yes, the same woman you pushed aside. Treat her with respect. Listen to her story. Learn from her experience and her wisdom. The other staff members don't need to know who you really are or why you're there. You'll just be another trainee learning the ropes of hospitality from the ground up. Can you handle that, Mrs. Ashford? Can you set aside your ego for 6 hours? Victoria Ashford stood outside the staff entrance at 5:58 a.m., shivering slightly. She'd barely slept, tossing and turning between Egyptian cotton sheets worth thousands, replaying the humiliating confrontation in Marcus Chen's office over and over again. Her usual designer wardrobe had been replaced with simple jeans and a plain sweater, her manicured hands bare of the rings she typically wore like armor against the world. Without makeup and expensive clothes, she felt naked, exposed, stripped of her identity. The pre-dawn air carried the smell of fresh bread from the hotel's bakery. Delivery trucks rumbled past, their drivers starting shifts that began before sunrise daily. Victoria had never been awake at this hour unless she was returning from a party. The world looked different now, quieter, somehow more real than the one she knew. At exactly 6 a.m., the staff door opened, revealing Maria in a crisp housekeeping uniform. The same woman Victoria had shoved aside just yesterday now stood holding the door open. You must be the new trainee, Maria said with a warm smile that seemed impossibly genuine. Mr. Chen told me you'd be shadowing different departments today to learn the operations. Welcome to the Grand Meridian family. I'm Maria Rodriguez, head of housekeeping services. She extended her hand, and Victoria took it hesitantly, expecting coldness or resentment. But Maria's handshake was firm and kind, her eyes showing no recognition of yesterday's encounter. I'm Victoria, she managed, leaving off her last name instinctively, feeling suddenly anonymous. Good to meet you, Victoria. Come on, I'll show you where to clock in and get your supplies. We have 32 rooms to service on floors 40 through 42 this morning. It's our busiest section. Lots of suites, lots of attention to detail required for every guest. You'll learn quickly that housekeeping is the backbone of any successful hotel operation. We're invisible when we do our jobs perfectly, but noticed immediately when anything's wrong. Victoria followed Maria through corridors she'd never seen, a hidden world behind the glamour. The housekeeping break room was small but clean, with lockers lining one wall. Several women in matching uniforms chatted in Spanish while preparing their supply carts, their laughter filling the space with warmth that felt foreign to Victoria's usual environment. Everyone, this is Victoria. She's training with us today, Maria announced to the group. The women called out friendly greetings, welcoming her without hesitation or judgment. "First time in housekeeping?" asked a younger woman named Carmen, with bright, curious eyes. Victoria nodded, unable to find words that wouldn't sound condescending or ridiculous. "Don't worry, we'll teach you everything. It's hard work, but there's dignity in it. We take care of people, make their stays comfortable, create little moments of luxury. When someone walks into a perfectly prepared room after a long day of travel, that peace they feel, that's us. That's our work making a difference in their life." Carmen's pride was evident, and Victoria felt something shift uncomfortably in her chest. Maria handed Victoria a uniform shirt and showed her how to load the housekeeping cart properly. "Organization is everything," she explained, her hands moving with practiced efficiency and grace. "Cleaning supplies on the bottom shelf, fresh linens here, toiletries sorted by type. Everything has its place so you can work quickly without wasting time searching for items. We have 18 minutes per standard room, 30 for suites. That includes everything. Stripping beds, cleaning bathrooms, vacuuming, dusting, restocking, and final inspection quality check. It sounds like a lot of time until you actually start doing the work yourself." Victoria looked at the cart, overwhelmed by the sheer volume of supplies and mental organization. She'd never made her own bed in her life, let alone cleaned a bathroom. The prospect of doing 32 rooms seemed impossible, like climbing Everest in heels. "Ready?" Maria asked with an encouraging smile that somehow made the challenge seem manageable. Victoria took a deep breath and nodded, gripping the cart handle like a lifeline. The first room was a standard king on the 40th floor. A guest had checked out early. Maria demonstrated the process with fluid movements that made it look almost effortless and simple. Strip the bed completely, all sheets, pillowcases, duvet cover, mattress pad, everything off. Check the mattress for any stains or damage that housekeeping management needs to know about. Then we remake it with fresh linens, hospital corners here and here, tight and perfect. The guest should feel like they're the first person ever to sleep in this bed." Victoria watched, then attempted to copy Maria's movements with her own clumsy hands. The fitted sheet fought her like a living thing, popping off corners as fast as she secured them. Sweat beaded on her forehead from the simple exertion of wrestling with basic cotton fabric. Maria gently corrected her grip, showed her the technique, patient as a teacher with a child. "It takes practice," she said kindly. "I've been doing this for 12 years now. My first day I couldn't make a bed properly either. Everyone starts somewhere humble." By the third room, Victoria's back was already aching from bending and reaching constantly. Her hands, unused to physical labor, felt raw from handling cleaning chemicals and rough linens. Maria moved through the bathroom with swift precision. Toilet, sink, shower, mirror, floor, each surface receiving exactly the right attention in exactly the right order for efficiency. "People don't think about the effort," Maria said while scrubbing grout with vigorous strokes. "They just expect cleanliness, like it happens magically when they leave their rooms. But behind every sparkling mirror is someone's elbow grease, someone's time and care. I think about the guests sometimes, the families on vacation, the business travelers far from home. Maybe they're stressed or tired or lonely, and they walk into this clean, fresh space. It's a small gift we give them, even though they'll never know our names or faces. That's what makes this work meaningful. We're part of their story, even invisibly so." Victoria paused, seeing her reflection in the mirror Maria had just polished to perfection. Around room 15, Victoria's arms felt like they might fall off from exhaustion. "Can we take a break?" she asked, her voice embarrassingly breathless from basic work. Maria checked her watch and shook her head with sympathetic but firm resolve. "We're behind schedule. If we don't finish our section, the evening shift gets overwhelmed. It's a team effort. Everyone depends on everyone else to pull their weight consistently. But here, drink some water." She offered her own bottle generously to Victoria. They kept working, Victoria pushing through fatigue she'd never experienced in her privileged life. She watched Maria work with unwavering focus, never complaining despite the repetitive physical demands. Can I ask you something?" Victoria ventured, while struggling with another stubborn fitted sheet. "Of course." Maria replied, helping her secure a particularly difficult corner without judgment. Why do you do this? Don't you want, I don't know, something different, something better? Maria paused, her expression thoughtful rather than offended by the poorly phrased question. Better, Maria echoed, a gentle smile playing at the corners of her tired mouth. I have a job that pays my bills and feeds my 3 beautiful children every day. I work for a company that treats me with respect and offers benefits like health care. Mr. Chen personally paid for my oldest daughter's appendectomy when our insurance wouldn't cover it. He didn't have to do that, I'm just a housekeeper. But he said family takes care of family. I'm also in nursing school at night, studying to become an RN in 2 more years. The hotel works with my class schedule, lets me swap shifts when I have exams coming up. So you tell me, what's better than meaningful work that supports my family and my dreams? Better than colleagues who feel like sisters and a boss who sees me as human? Some people measure better by job titles and salary numbers on paper. I measure it by whether I can look my children in the eyes with pride. This work gives me dignity, purpose, and a path forward. That's better than anything. Victoria felt tears prickling her eyes as Maria's words sank in like stones into water. Here was a woman with every justification for bitterness: hard work, modest pay, difficult circumstances, yet she radiated more genuine contentment than Victoria had felt in her entire privileged life. I pushed you yesterday, Victoria said suddenly, the confession bursting out without planning. In the hallway. I was rude and didn't apologize. I didn't even see you as a person. Maria's hands stilled on the pillow she was fluffing, her expression unreadable for a moment. I know, she said quietly. I recognized you when you arrived this morning at the door. Mr. Chen asked me to mentor you anyway, to give you a chance to see things differently. He believes people can change if given the right opportunity and perspective to grow. I wasn't sure I agreed. I've dealt with people like you before, people who don't see us. But watching you work today, struggling through tasks you've never had to do before, I think maybe there's hope for you yet, if you're willing to keep your heart open. They finished the last room on their section at 12:30, 30 minutes behind schedule. Victoria collapsed against the wall, her body screaming with exhaustion from 6 hours of work. Every muscle ached, her hands were red and raw, and she smelled of cleaning chemicals. But something else stirred beneath the physical discomfort, a strange sense of accomplishment. She'd completed something difficult, worked alongside someone remarkable, and survived the challenge. You did good for your first day, Maria said, patting her shoulder with genuine warmth. Not great, she added with a teasing smile, but good enough that you didn't quit. That takes character, more than most privileged people have when facing real work honestly. Come on, let me show you to the break room. You have lunch, then front desk training. Sarah's expecting you at 1:30, so you've got just enough time to eat and rest. Victoria followed on trembling legs. Her perspective on the world fundamentally shifted. She'd spent 6 hours in Maria's shoes and learned more than a lifetime of charity galas taught. Sarah Chen, no relation to Marcus despite the shared surname, greeted Victoria at the front desk. She was younger than Victoria expected, maybe late 20s, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Welcome to the front lines, Sarah said with a knowing smile that held a hint of challenge. This is where we handle every guest complaint, every special request, every crisis imaginable. We're therapists, problem solvers, miracle workers, and verbal punching bags all at once. The guests see us as the face of the hotel. Everything wrong becomes our personal failure. Victoria shifted uncomfortably, remembering her own treatment of this very woman yesterday. She'd screamed about thread counts and pillows, demanding immediate solutions at 2 a.m., treating Sarah like an incompetent servant rather than a professional managing hundreds of details. I owe you an apology, Victoria said, the words feeling inadequate but necessary to speak. Sarah's expression softened slightly, though guardedness remained in her professional posture and tone. Mr. Chen told me about your training day. Let's focus on moving forward, shall we? The front desk computer system was overwhelming. multiple screens displaying reservations, requests, billing information. Every guest has a profile, Sarah explained, her fingers flying across the keyboard with precision. Preferences, allergies, past complaints, special occasions, loyalty status, it's all documented here meticulously. Mrs. Henderson in 3405 needs hypoallergenic pillows and prefers her room at exactly 68 degrees. Mr. Tanaka in 2817 is celebrating his anniversary. We sent champagne and strawberries automatically. The Johnsons in 4103 are here for their daughter's cancer treatment at the hospital nearby. We comp their breakfast every morning and never ever mention why we do it for them. Hospitality isn't just customer service. It's paying attention to human beings and their stories. It's anticipating needs before they're voiced, creating moments of unexpected kindness always. Every interaction is an opportunity to make someone's day better or worse, fundamentally. We have that power, and with it comes enormous responsibility to use it wisely. Victoria absorbed this, seeing the depth of work she'd dismissed as simple button-pushing before. The phone rang, and Sarah answered with practiced warmth. "Front desk, this is Sarah speaking." Her face shifted through micro-expressions as she listened. Concern, then problem-solving focus. "I understand completely, sir. Let me see what I can do to resolve this immediately." She put the call on hold and turned to Victoria with an evaluating look. "Guest in 3822 says his shower has no hot water and he has a meeting in 40 minutes. He's understandably frustrated. This is your chance to handle it." "What do you do?" Victoria's mind raced, remembering how she would have reacted to such an inconvenience herself. Send maintenance to fix it," she offered uncertainly, feeling tested and exposed. "That's part of it, but think bigger. Think about his actual need beyond the mechanical problem. He doesn't just need hot water fixed. He needs to shower and get to his meeting on time." Victoria thought harder, trying to see beyond her own limited perspective and experience. Offer him a different room, one where he can shower immediately while maintenance works? "Exactly!" Sarah smiled, genuine approval lighting her features for the first time that day. "But you'd also send his suit to be pressed while he showers? Arrange a car service? Call the meeting location to let them know he might be 5 minutes late? Anticipate everything. Turn his problem into an experience where he feels genuinely cared for beyond basic solutions. That's the difference between adequate service and the excellence that creates loyal guests forever. Now you tell him. Practice your tone, your word choice, your empathy in this moment." Victoria took the phone, her hand trembling slightly as she pressed the hold button release. "Good afternoon, sir. I sincerely apologize for the inconvenience with your shower water. I've arranged for you to use Suite 3830 immediately. It's ready for you right now. While you're showering, we'll press your suit and have a car waiting to ensure you're not late. I'll also call ahead to your meeting location to inform them you're on your way shortly. Is there anything else I can do to help make this situation right for you?" The guest's tone shifted from irritation to surprised gratitude almost immediately upon hearing her words. That's incredibly helpful. Thank you. I wasn't expecting such thorough assistance." Victoria felt an unfamiliar warmth spreading through her chest, pride in solving someone's problem genuinely. After hanging up, Sarah nodded with approval that felt hard-earned and therefore more meaningful. "Well done. You turned a potential negative review into a story he'll tell about exceptional service. That's the power we have here, to transform problems into opportunities for human connection always." Now let's talk about the harder part, dealing with guests who are angry beyond reason. Sarah pulled up security footage from yesterday, and Victoria's stomach dropped with recognition. There she was, screaming in the lobby, berating Marcus, making a public scene of entitled rage. This guest, Sarah said carefully, was upset about something that wasn't actually wrong at all. Sometimes people bring their stress, insecurity, or bad day and dump it on whoever's available. How do you handle that with grace when everything in you wants to fight back defensively? Victoria watched her own terrible behavior play out on screen, cringing with genuine shame. I don't know, she admitted quietly. How do you handle it when people treat you that way? Sarah paused the video and turned to face Victoria directly, her expression open and honest. I remember that their anger usually isn't about me. It's about something else they can't control. Maybe they're scared, frustrated, hurt by something completely unrelated to hotel service entirely. I also remember that I go home to people who love me, to a life outside these walls. Their words can only hurt me if I let them define my worth and value as a person. And sometimes I remember that I'm lucky. I have a job, a home, food, health. Perspective helps when someone's screaming about pillow thread counts at 2 in the morning unreasonably. The pointed reference wasn't subtle, and Victoria felt the weight of her actions crash over her. I was that person, she whispered, barely able to meet Sarah's eyes with her overwhelming shame. I was cruel to you when you were just trying to help and do your job professionally. Yes, you were, Sarah confirmed, not sugarcoating the truth, but not wielding it cruelly either. You made me feel small and incompetent, like my years of experience meant absolutely nothing. I went home that night and cried to my daughter about how some people treat others. She's 7, and I had to explain why a guest screamed at Mommy for things beyond control. That's what people like you don't see, the ripple effect of your cruelty on real human lives. I'm a single mother working full-time while finishing my hospitality management degree at night. Mr. Chen pays for my tuition because he believes in investing in his staff's future and growth. This job isn't just a paycheck, it's my career, my passion, my path to a better life. When you demean me, you're not just insulting the help or some faceless service worker. You're hurting a real person with dreams, struggles, and a child watching how I respond to adversity. That's what I wish people understood before they unleashed their worst behavior on us here. Victoria's tears flowed freely now, the accumulated weight of her cruelty finally breaking through completely. I'm so sorry, Victoria sobbed, the apology coming from somewhere deep and genuine within her. I never considered, I just saw my own frustration and felt entitled to express it. You didn't deserve any of that treatment. Nobody does, regardless of their job or position in life. Sarah reached across the desk and handed her tissues, the gesture kind, despite everything that had occurred. Apologies matter, but changed behavior matters more in the long run, she said with gentle firmness. The question is, will you remember this feeling next time you're frustrated at someone serving you? Will you see the person behind the uniform, the human behind the transaction, the story behind the smile? That's what separates genuine growth from temporary remorse that fades when convenience allows forgetfulness. Victoria wiped her eyes, nodding with a determination she'd never felt about anything before in life. I want to change. I don't want to be that person anymore, the one who hurts others without thinking. But I don't know how. I've been raised my entire life to believe that money equals superiority somehow. How do I unlearn 37 years of toxic thinking and ingrained patterns of entitled behavior? Sarah considered the question, her expression thoughtful, as she leaned against the desk's polished surface. The same way you'd learn anything new, with practice, mindfulness, and commitment to growth daily. Start by pausing before you speak. When frustrated, ask yourself if your words will hurt or help. Remember that every person you encounter is fighting battles you know nothing about at all. The barista who made your coffee wrong might have just lost a parent to terminal illness. The driver who cut you off might be rushing to the hospital for a family emergency right now. Choose kindness as your default, not because people earn it, but because you value it inherently. And when you fail, because you will, we all do, acknowledge it, apologize genuinely, and try again. Growth isn't linear or perfect. It's messy and full of setbacks, but it's always worth pursuing. A guest approached the desk, interrupting their conversation with a question about restaurant reservations. Victoria watched Sarah transform instantly, warm smile, focused attention, genuine care in every word spoken. This was mastery, she realized, the ability to show up fully for others, regardless of personal circumstances. After the guest left, satisfied with Sarah's assistance and restaurant recommendations provided, Victoria checked the clock and realized her front desk training time had come to an end. "You've got one more rotation," Sarah said, consulting the schedule Marcus had created for today. "Room service with James. He's waiting for you in the kitchen to begin that final training section. He's the veteran I mentioned, the one you didn't thank when he carried your luggage yesterday." Victoria winced at yet another reminder of her thoughtless behavior toward deserving people. "Before you go," Sarah added, her voice softer now, almost vulnerable in its honesty, "I want you to know that I appreciate you actually trying today, rather than just going through motions. A lot of people in your position would show up, do the minimum, and learn nothing from experience. You're asking questions, listening to answers, and actually seeming to absorb the lessons being offered here. That takes humility and courage, more than most wealthy people possess when facing their own flaws honestly. Keep that openness with James. He has wisdom you need, even if it's painful to receive sometimes." James Mitchell stood in the hotel kitchen wearing a crisp room service uniform and a gentle smile. He was in his early 50s, with silver hair cut military short and posture that spoke of discipline. On his left arm, barely visible beneath his sleeve, Victoria glimpsed the edge of a tattoo, an eagle and flag that marked him as former military, a warrior who'd served his country. "You must be Victoria," he said, extending his hand with a grip that was firm but not aggressive. "Mr. Chen said you'd be learning the room service operation this afternoon with me here. It's fairly straightforward work. We take orders, prepare trays, deliver meals to guest rooms efficiently. The key is attention to detail, timing, and treating every delivery like it matters to someone. Because it does matter. A meal isn't just food, it's comfort, celebration, or sustenance for travelers. We're often the only human interaction a guest has during their entire stay at the hotel. That brief moment when we deliver their order, that's our chance to make them feel seen." Victoria nodded, still processing Sarah's words about this man deserving gratitude she'd never offered. "I need to apologize," Victoria blurted out before she could lose her nerve to speak honestly. "Yesterday, you carried my bags, and I didn't thank you or even acknowledge your help at all. I treated you like you were invisible, like your service was something I was entitled to receive. That was wrong, and I'm genuinely sorry for my disrespect and thoughtless behavior toward you." James studied her for a long moment, his expression unreadable beneath years of practiced neutrality. "Apology accepted," he finally said, though his tone suggested he'd heard empty apologies before often. "Let's focus on the work ahead. We've got 7 room service orders to prepare and deliver. First rule, check the order 3 times before you leave the kitchen. Accuracy is everything always. Someone with a severe allergy could die from our carelessness with ingredients or cross-contamination. Second rule, presentation matters as much as the food itself in this level of hospitality service. Every tray should look like art. Napkins folded perfectly, garnishes placed with intention and care. Third rule, deliver with a smile, even if you're exhausted, frustrated, or having the worst day. They began preparing the first order, breakfast for a guest in room 2614 at 3 p.m. "Late breakfast?" Victoria asked, helping James arrange croissants on fine china with careful placement. "Maybe they just arrived from overseas and are dealing with jet lag and sleep disruption," James explained. "Maybe they worked the night shift, and this is their morning, regardless of the actual time showing. Maybe they're going through chemotherapy, and this is the first meal they felt able to eat today. We don't know their story, so we don't judge. We just serve with excellence and compassion always." He showed her how to fold the napkin into an elegant swan, his large hands surprisingly deft. "I learned this in Afghanistan, actually," he said, noticing her surprised expression at his skill level. "We had downtime between missions, and one of the guys was former hospitality before enlisting in service. He taught us napkin folding, said it reminded him of normalcy when everything felt chaotic and dangerous. Funny what you remember from war, Not just the trauma, but the quiet moments of unexpected beauty too. Victoria's hands stilled, holding a napkin half-folded, suddenly aware of depths she'd never considered before. "How long did you serve?" she asked quietly, genuinely curious about this man's story and sacrifice. 22 years, 3 tours in Iraq, 2 in Afghanistan, various other deployments in between. Came home with a Purple Heart, PTSD, and a body that reminds me daily what service costs. Lost friends, saw things no human should see, did things I still process in therapy weekly. When I came back, I couldn't hold a normal job. The stress, the crowds, the unpredictability triggered me. Mr. Chen hired me anyway, knowing my struggles and limitations, seeing my value despite my wounds. He created a position that works with my therapy schedule and understands when I need mental health days. This job saved my life, literally, gave me purpose when I felt like I had nothing to offer society. So when guests are rude or dismissive, I remember they don't know my story, just like I don't know theirs. We're all fighting invisible battles, carrying burdens that don't show on the surface of our polished exteriors. Compassion costs nothing but means everything. That's what war taught me about humanity fundamentally. Victoria felt her throat tighten with emotion, humbled beyond words by this man's grace and wisdom shared. They loaded the first tray onto a service cart and headed toward the elevators in practiced synchronization. James pushed with smooth efficiency, navigating corners and doorways with the precision of long experience. When you knock, give them time to answer. Don't rush or knock repeatedly with impatience, he instructed. They might be elderly and move slowly, or disabled, or just finishing getting dressed respectfully. Always announce room service clearly so they know who's at the door before opening it up. Make eye contact, smile genuinely, and ask where they'd like the tray placed in their room. Never just dump and run. Pause, make sure they have everything they need, offer to pour coffee. Those extra 30 seconds of attention transform a transaction into human connection that matters deeply. At room 2614, James demonstrated perfectly. Patient knock, warm greeting, careful placement of the breakfast. The guest was an elderly woman who smiled with such gratitude it made Victoria's chest ache. "Thank you, young man," she said to James. "You've made my daughter's birthday breakfast absolutely perfect." "Happy birthday to your daughter, ma'am," James replied warmly. "Enjoy your meal and your special celebration." Back in the hallway, Victoria asked the question burning in her mind since witnessing that interaction. "How do you do it? Stay so kind and patient after everything you've been through in your life." James pressed the elevator button, considering his answer with the thoughtfulness of someone who'd asked himself similarly. The opposite of war isn't peace. It's creation, connection, service to others without violence or destruction. Every kind interaction I have now is a choice to build rather than destroy, to heal rather than harm. I could let my trauma make me bitter, angry, closed off from human connection and vulnerability entirely. Or I can let it teach me that life is precious, fragile, and worth showing up for with full presence. Every meal I deliver is a small act of peace. Nourishing someone, making their day slightly better. That sounds dramatic maybe, but when you've seen what I've seen, you understand that kindness is revolutionary. It's the most powerful weapon we have against all the darkness and cruelty in this broken world. The elevator arrived, and they stepped inside, but Victoria felt like she was being transported beyond floors, into new understanding, new perspective, a completely different way of seeing life and her place within it. Over the next 4 deliveries, Victoria watched James interact with each guest like they mattered profoundly. The businessman, who barely looked up from his laptop, still received James's full attention and warm service. The family with screaming children got patience and a joke that made the frazzled parents smile with relief. The couple, arguing in tense whispers, received their anniversary dinner with congratulations that paused their fight. Each interaction was its own small ministry, James bringing presence and care to every single door. "You really love this work," Victoria observed as they returned to the kitchen for the next order. "I love people," James corrected gently. The work is just the vehicle for connection and service. I could be delivering mail or driving a bus. Any job that lets me interact with humanity positively. After years of being trained to see people as potential threats or enemies to eliminate, I needed work that would retrain me to see the inherent dignity in every human being I encounter. This job does that. It reminds me daily that people are worth serving, protecting, caring for always. That's the healing I needed more than any medication or therapy could provide alone without purpose. The final delivery was to the presidential suite, Victoria's own room that she'd be returning to tonight. Her breakfast order from this morning still sat outside the door where James had delivered it hours ago. The food untouched and cold because she'd been too busy complaining on the phone to even answer. James noticed it immediately, his expression neutral as he processed this evidence of waste and disrespect. "This happens more often than you'd think," he said quietly, lifting the old tray with practiced movements. "People order food they don't eat, make requests they don't truly need, waste resources without thinking. It bothers me, growing up poor, serving in places where people had nothing, seeing real hunger and deprivation. But I remind myself that judgment doesn't help anyone, and everyone's on their own journey to awareness." Victoria stared at the wasted breakfast she'd ordered on a whim and ignored completely this morning. "That was me," she whispered, shame burning hot in her chest like acid reflux or heartburn. "I ordered it without thinking, then got distracted by calls and complaints that seemed so urgent then. I didn't even consider that someone prepared that food, someone delivered it, someone would have to clear it. And now you know better," James said simply, without accusation or triumph in his steady, calm voice. "The question is, what will you do differently next time when you have the choice to change?" He knocked on the suite door for the dinner delivery, Victoria's own room, though she'd been gone all day. "Room service," he called out, then used his master key when no answer came from the empty space. Inside, Victoria saw her suite with completely new eyes after the day's transformative experiences here. The perfectly made bed represented Maria's labor, expertise and care given to strangers like her daily. The spotless bathroom reflected hours of scrubbing by women who took pride in work others never noticed. The fresh flowers, the pressed towels, the organized amenities, all evidence of invisible hands creating comfort. "I never saw any of this before," Victoria said, her voice breaking with the weight of recognition finally. "I just consumed it all, expected it, complained when it wasn't exactly as I wanted immediately. I never thought about the people behind it, their stories, their struggles, their dignity and humanity. How could I have been so blind for so long to something so fundamental and obvious?" James set down the dinner tray, arranging it perfectly, despite knowing this was Victoria's own suite. "Most people never wake up to this awareness," he said, his tone kind, despite her obvious distress. "They go through entire lives consuming service without seeing the servants as fully human and equal. You're being given a gift today, the gift of perspective that could change everything going forward. What you do with that gift determines whether today was just an interesting experience or true transformation. Will you go back to your old life and gradually forget these lessons when comfort allows forgetfulness? Or will you carry this awareness forward, letting it reshape how you move through the world? That's between you and whatever you believe about who you want to be in this life ultimately. But I'll tell you what I know from experience. Real change comes from daily practice, not grand gestures. It's in the small moments, saying thank you, making eye contact, seeing people rather than positions. That's where character is built or destroyed, one interaction at a time over the course of years. Victoria nodded, knowing he was right, feeling the weight of choice settling on her shoulders like responsibility. Victoria stood alone in her presidential suite after James left, the silence almost deafening around her. Her designer luggage sat untouched in the corner, clothes worth thousands scattered carelessly across furniture. The room that had seemed barely adequate yesterday now felt like obscene luxury after today's experiences. She walked to the bathroom and looked at herself in the mirror Maria had polished to perfection. Without makeup, her face showed lines of stress and unhappiness she usually concealed with cosmetics. Her hands were raw and red from cleaning chemicals, physical evidence of labor she'd never considered before. Every muscle in her body ached from work that Maria did 6 days a week without complaint. She thought about Sarah going home to explain to her 7-year-old why strangers screamed at Mommy. She pictured James folding napkins in Afghanistan, finding beauty in chaos, choosing kindness after war. These weren't background characters in her life story. They were the heroes of their own stories entirely, and she had treated them like they were less than human, less than worthy of basic decency. The weight of that realization crushed down on her shoulders like physical pressure impossible to escape. Her phone buzzed on the marble countertop, dozens of missed calls and texts from her usual social circle. "Where are you? The pre-gala cocktail party is starting in an hour. Everyone's asking about you. Victoria, darling, you simply must see the dress I'm wearing tonight. It's divine, cost a fortune. Can you believe the hotel tried to charge me for minibar items? The audacity of these people." Victoria stared at the messages, seeing them through completely different eyes than she had yesterday morning. Her friends, were they really friends? Sounded exactly like she had 24 hours ago, precisely. Entitled, dismissive, treating money as the ultimate measure of worth and value in human society. When had she become this person? When had cruelty disguised as standards become her default setting? She thought back to her childhood, before money, when her father was building his first business. She remembered him coming home exhausted, talking about employees by name, asking about their families. "Treat people right, Victoria," he'd said once. "Success means nothing if you lose your humanity." When had she forgotten that lesson? When had wealth made her into someone he wouldn't recognize? A soft knock interrupted her spiraling thoughts, gentle but persistent against the heavy, sweet door. Victoria opened it to find Marcus Chen standing in the hallway, no longer in his doorman uniform. He wore a simple but elegant suit, looking every bit the billionaire hotel magnate he actually was. "May I come in?" he asked, with the same respectful tone he'd used when she treated him terribly. Victoria stepped aside, suddenly embarrassed by the mess she'd created in this beautiful space carelessly. Marcus entered and walked to the windows overlooking Central Park, bathed in early evening golden light. "How was your day?" he asked, his back to her, voice carrying genuine curiosity about her experience. "Exhausting, humbling, eye-opening, horrible and wonderful at the same time," Victoria answered honestly. "Maria, Sarah and James, they're incredible people, and I was absolutely horrible to all of them yesterday. I don't know how you kept from throwing me out on the street after how I behaved." Marcus turned to face her, his expression thoughtful and appraising but not harsh or condemning. "I've learned that people aren't defined by their worst moments. They're defined by what they do next." "Your staff told you about today?" Victoria asked, wondering what reports had reached his ears already. "They told me you worked hard, asked good questions, and seemed genuinely affected by what you learned. Maria said you apologized sincerely and pushed through exhaustion without complaining about the labor. Sarah said you listened when she shared about her daughter and actually seemed to understand the impact. James said you looked at your wasted breakfast with real shame and asked meaningful questions about service. Those aren't the actions of someone going through motions. Those are signs of genuine transformation beginning." Marcus walked to the desk and picked up a folder Victoria hadn't noticed lying there waiting. "This is the information for tonight's charity gala, the event you originally came to attend here. You've completed your 6 hours of work with my staff, fulfilled our agreement exactly as required. You're free to attend the gala, write your check, and return to your regular life without consequences. The security footage of yesterday's incident will remain confidential, your reputation intact and untarnished. You did what I asked, and I keep my word. Our deal is complete if you want it to be." "If I want it to be," Victoria repeated, catching the implication in his carefully chosen words. Marcus set down the folder and looked at her directly, his gaze penetrating but not unkind at all. You could go to that gala tonight and learn nothing lasting from today's experiences here. Surround yourself with people who will reinforce your old beliefs, your old behaviors, your old values. Write a check, take some photos, feel charitable without actually changing anything fundamental about yourself. In a week, today will feel like a strange dream, and you'll slip back into familiar patterns. Or, he paused significantly, you could make a different choice that leads down an unfamiliar path. You could use tonight not as an end to this lesson, but as the beginning of something new. The question I'm asking is, do you want to be comfortable, or do you want to be changed? Victoria felt her heart pounding as she understood the weight of what he was truly offering her. What would the different choice look like in practical terms? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. Marcus smiled slightly, the first genuine warmth she'd seen from him since that devastating office confrontation. The gala tonight is raising money for underprivileged youth, scholarships, mentorship programs, opportunity creation. I sit on the board of the foundation, help direct where funds go and how programs are structured. We're always looking for people willing to do more than write checks, people willing to actually show up. Mentor a young person from a background different from yours. Share your business knowledge and connections. Volunteer at the community center. Help with resume writing, interview preparation, college application support. Use your privilege and access to open doors for people who deserve opportunities but lack the connections. That kind of service requires time, humility, genuine care, not just money thrown at problems from distance. It's uncomfortable, messy, requires you to see people's struggles up close rather than from comfortable safety. But it's also the kind of work that changes everyone involved, not just the people receiving help. Victoria listened, her mind racing with possibilities she'd never considered before in her privileged life. She'd always written checks for charity, attended galas, posted photos with causes she barely understood, but actual service. Real relationships with people different from her, that was completely foreign territory to explore. I wouldn't know where to start, Victoria admitted, feeling vulnerable in a way she rarely allowed herself. I don't have the skills for that kind of mentorship or the experience with real struggle people face. What could I possibly offer someone from an underprivileged background beyond money and connections? Marcus's expression softened further, and he gestured for her to sit on the suite's luxurious couch. You'd be surprised what you have to offer beyond financial resources and social networking access. You've built businesses, navigated corporate politics, developed professional skills and expertise over years. Someone trying to break into those worlds needs guidance from people who've successfully walked those paths. But more than that, you could offer what you've begun learning today, the value of seeing people. Young people from difficult backgrounds often feel invisible, like society has written them off completely already. When someone successful takes time to truly see them, believe in them, invest in their potential, that changes everything about how they see themselves and what they believe is possible for their futures. Your presence, attention, and belief in them matters as much as any check you could ever write. Victoria felt tears streaming down her face again. The second time today, she'd cried genuine emotional tears. I wasted so much time being horrible, she said, the regret thick in her voice like honey. Years of treating people badly, never seeing beyond my own narrow world and selfish concerns completely. How do I make up for that? How do I become the kind of person who makes a real difference? Marcus leaned forward, his elbows on his knees, his expression earnest and encouraging rather than judgmental. You don't make up for the past. You can't change what's already done and said to people you've hurt, but you can commit to being different moving forward. One day, one interaction, one choice at a time. Start tonight at the gala. Not as someone performing charity for social credit or photo opportunities, but as someone genuinely interested in the cause, the people, the stories behind the statistics and speeches. Talk to the scholarship recipients. Ask about their dreams. Listen to their struggles with full presence. Then follow up. Don't let it be a one-time feel-good moment that fades when you return to comfort. Real change requires sustained effort, consistent showing up, willingness to be uncomfortable repeatedly over time. "Will you help me?" Victoria asked, the question coming from a place of genuine humility and need. "I don't trust myself to do this right without guidance from someone who actually understands what matters. I could so easily slip back into old patterns, turn this into performance rather than real transformation. I need someone to hold me accountable, call me out when I'm being my old self without realizing it." Marcus considered her request, studying her face for signs of sincerity or manipulation behind the words. Whatever he saw must have satisfied him, because he nodded slowly with what looked like cautious hope. "I'll introduce you to someone at the gala tonight, Elena Rodriguez, Maria's oldest daughter from housekeeping. She's receiving one of our foundation scholarships to study business administration at Columbia University next fall. Brilliant girl, first in her family to attend college, dreams of opening a community center in her neighborhood. She could use a mentor with your business experience and connections in the corporate world you navigate. But this isn't charity work, where you swoop in as the rich savior, fixing someone's life from above. It's a partnership. You'll learn as much from her as she learns from you if you approach it right." Victoria felt something shift inside her chest. Fear mixed with excitement, trepidation blended with hope. This was real commitment, not abstract promises she could abandon when inconvenient or challenging to maintain. Elena would be an actual person expecting her presence, depending on her follow-through, trusting her word. The weight of that responsibility felt enormous, but also strangely grounding, like an anchor to purpose. What if I mess it up? What if I say the wrong thing or don't know how to help properly? Marcus smiled, the expression warm with understanding, born from his own journey of growth and mistakes. "Then you apologize, learn from the mistake, and try again with better awareness. Exactly like today showed. Perfection isn't the goal. Genuine effort and care are what matter most in relationships with people. Elena's been through more hardship than you can imagine. She's resilient and gracious beyond her years. But she also deserves someone who will show up consistently, not just when it's convenient or comfortable. Can you commit to that? To being present for someone else's journey even when it requires sacrifice?" Victoria took a deep breath and nodded, feeling like she was stepping off a cliff into unknown territory. The diamond ballroom glittered with crystal chandeliers and the collective wealth of Manhattan's elite society. Women in couture gowns worth more than yearly salaries mingled with men in custom-tailored tuxedos. Champagne flowed freely, servers weaving through crowds with practiced invisibility and grace under pressure. Victoria entered alone, having declined her usual entourage's increasingly frantic calls and demanding messages. She wore a simple black dress, elegant but understated, chosen deliberately to blend rather than to stand out. For the first time in years, she felt nervous at a social event, uncertain of her place. Everything looked different now, filtered through the lens of today's transformative experiences with staff. She noticed the servers, their polite smiles, their careful navigation of entitled guests expecting immediate service. One woman balanced a heavy tray, while a guest carelessly grabbed champagne without acknowledging her presence. Another server apologized profusely when someone bumped into him, spilling wine on their own expensive gown. Victoria watched these invisible interactions she'd never noticed before, seeing the pattern of dismissal everywhere. These were people like Maria, Sarah, and James, working hard, being treated as background scenery by the wealthy. "Victoria, there you are!" Her friend Cynthia appeared in a cloud of expensive perfume and false enthusiasm. "We've been looking everywhere for you. Where have you been all day? You look absolutely exhausted." Victoria managed a tired smile, already feeling the distance between her old life and new awareness. "I've been working," she said simply, the truth sounding strange in this glittering context of extreme privilege. Cynthia laughed as if Victoria had made a clever joke, not understanding the literal meaning behind it. Working? How droll! Well, come, you must see the auction items. There's a divine Hermes bag I'm bidding on, and Margot is here with her new husband, third one this year. Can you believe the scandal? She linked her arm through Victoria's, pulling her toward their usual circle of gossip and superficiality. But Victoria gently extracted herself, the familiar banter feeling hollow after today's genuine human connections formed. Actually, I need to find someone, she said, scanning the crowd for Maria or Marcus among faces. Find someone. Darling, everyone who matters is right here in our group as always, Cynthia protested with confusion. But Victoria was already moving away, drawn toward a different kind of gathering near the scholarship display. A small group of young people stood awkwardly near a table, displaying scholarship recipient photos and stories. They wore their best clothes, thrift store finds dressed up with care, but still looked out of place here. The other gala attendees circulated around them like water around stones, polite but distant always. Victoria approached slowly, her heart pounding with nervousness she hadn't felt since her own youth. A young woman with Maria's eyes and warm smile was explaining her college plans to an elderly donor. I want to study business so I can help my community access resources and opportunities, she was saying. My neighborhood has so much potential, but people lack the knowledge and connections to build sustainable businesses. I want to bridge that gap, create programs that empower people rather than just offering temporary charity. The elderly donor nodded approvingly, but Victoria could see his attention was already drifting toward the bar. He made polite excuses and walked away, leaving the young woman's enthusiasm hanging in the air, unfinished. Victoria stepped forward, her mouth dry, trying to remember everything Marcus had said about genuine connection. I'm sorry to interrupt. You must be Elena, she said, offering her hand with a smile she hoped looked warm. Elena turned, surprise and curiosity crossing her expressive face as she assessed this stranger addressing her directly. Yes, I'm Elena Rodriguez. Are you with the foundation? She asked politely, her handshake firm despite uncertainty. Not officially, but I'm friends with Marcus Chen, and he suggested I should meet you this evening. Your mother Maria was my teacher today. She showed me what real excellence and dedication looked like. Recognition dawned in Elena's eyes, and her expression shifted to something more guarded and knowing immediately. You're the woman from yesterday, she stated. Not accusatory, but not warm either, just factual and honest. My mom told me about you, about what Mr. Chen asked her to do today as a lesson. Victoria felt her cheeks flush with embarrassment, but met Elena's gaze without looking away from truth. Yes, that was me. I was horrible to your mother and to the entire staff here yesterday. I'm deeply ashamed of my behavior, and I'm trying to learn to be a better person going forward. Your mother showed me more grace and kindness than I deserved. She's a remarkable woman, truly exceptional. Elena's expression softened slightly, though her wariness remained like a protective barrier around vulnerability. My mom is the strongest person I know, Elena said with fierce pride, evident in every word. She works 2 jobs, goes to nursing school at night, raises 3 kids mostly alone, never complains. Everything I am, everything I'm going to become. It's because she showed me that work has dignity, that you don't need wealth to have worth, and that character is built through how you treat people. Her words echoed Maria's lessons from this morning, wisdom passed from mother to daughter through lived example. Marcus thought I might be able to help mentor you as you start at Columbia, Victoria ventured carefully. I have business experience, connections in corporate America, knowledge about navigating those professional worlds. But honestly, after today, I think you have more to teach me than I have to offer you. Eleanor studied her for a long moment, clearly trying to decide if Victoria's words were genuine or performance. Why would you want to mentor me? You don't know me, and you certainly don't owe me anything. The skepticism was understandable. Elena had likely experienced enough false promises and empty gestures from the wealthy. Victoria needed to be honest, to offer something real rather than the polished answers her old self would have given. "Because I've spent my entire life surrounded by privilege without purpose," Victoria admitted with raw honesty. "I've written checks for charity while treating the people serving me like they were invisible or less than human. Today was the first time I've ever done actual work, seen how the other half lives, understood real struggle. It broke something open in me, something that needed breaking so I could become who I should have been all along. I don't want to mentor you to feel good about myself or earn redemption for my past behavior. I want to learn from you while sharing what knowledge I have that might actually be useful. I want to be part of something that matters, something beyond galas and photo opportunities and social performance. But I understand if you don't trust me. I haven't given you or your mother any reason to trust my intentions." Elena's eyes glistened slightly, and Victoria realized her own vulnerability had touched something authentic within the girl. "Mr. Chen told me you worked hard today, that you cried when you understood how you treated people. He said he thinks you might actually change, that today affected you in ways most people never allow. He wouldn't have suggested this mentorship if he didn't believe you were capable of genuine growth and transformation." "Your mother said the same thing," Victoria recalled, Maria's words from the hallway coming back to her. "She said there was hope for me if I kept my heart open to learning and growth beyond comfort. I've been given a gift today, perspective I didn't have before, awareness I can't unknow going forward. What I do with that gift is my choice, and I choose to try to be better, even if I stumble along the way." Elena nodded slowly, her decision forming behind eyes that had seen more hardship than Victoria could imagine. "Okay," she said finally, extending her hand again, this time not in greeting but in partnership and commitment. "Let's try this. But I need you to know that I don't need saving. I need support and guidance. There's a difference. I'm not a charity case or a project for you to feel good about helping from your privileged position. I'm a person with my own dreams, agency, and path. I just need help navigating systems designed to exclude people like me. Can you respect that boundary and meet me as an equal rather than as someone beneath you needing rescue?" Victoria gripped Eleanor's hand firmly, feeling the weight and importance of this moment crystallizing between them. "Yes, I can do that, and I will hold myself accountable to treating you with the respect you deserve always." Maria appeared then, wearing a simple dress but radiating more genuine elegance than anyone in the ballroom. She'd finished her housekeeping shift and come to support her daughter at this important scholarship event. "Mom!" Elena's face lit up with pure love as she embraced Maria, the bond between them visible and beautiful. Maria's eyes met Victoria's over her daughter's shoulder, questioning and protective of her precious child naturally. "It's okay, Mama," Eleanor said, reading her mother's concern with the fluency of lifelong connection and understanding. "We were just talking about the mentorship program. I think it could be good for both of us." Maria's expression remained cautious, but she nodded, trusting her daughter's judgment while clearly reserving her own. "You hurt her. You answer to me," Maria said quietly to Victoria, the threat gentle but absolutely serious. "She's worked too hard, overcome too much, to be someone's temporary feel-good project that gets abandoned midway. If you commit to this, you commit fully, showing up, following through, being present when it's inconvenient sometimes. My daughter deserves nothing less than complete dedication from anyone who enters her life promising support." Victoria felt the weight of maternal protection and understood exactly why Maria was being so careful and firm. "I understand," Victoria said, meeting Maria's eyes with all the sincerity she possessed in her transformed heart. "Your daughter is remarkable, and you've raised her to be strong, smart, and clear about her own worth completely. I'm honored that she's willing to give me a chance, despite how I treated you and everyone else yesterday. I promise I will show up, follow through, and be the kind of mentor she deserves consistently over time." And if I fail, if I fall back into old patterns, or treat her with anything less than complete respect, you have my permission to call me out, hold me accountable, and end the relationship to protect her immediately. I want this to work, but not at the cost of Elena's well-being or your peace of mind as her mother." Maria studied her face for a long, searching moment, looking for cracks in the sincerity being offered. Whatever she found must have been satisfactory, because her expression softened into cautious acceptance finally. "Mr. Chen believes in second chances," Maria said. "He gave me one when I was struggling and needed work desperately. He gave James one when no one else would hire a veteran with PTSD and visible struggles adjusting to civilian life. I guess I can extend the same grace as long as you prove yourself worthy of the trust being offered here." She pulled both Victoria and Elena into an unexpected embrace, creating a circle of connection across difference. The rest of the gala passed in a blur. Speeches about charitable giving and community impact Victoria barely heard. She stayed with Elena and Maria, listening to their stories, learning about their neighborhood and its challenges. Other scholarship recipients joined their conversation, sharing dreams and obstacles with increasing comfort and openness. Victoria found herself genuinely interested, asking questions not to be polite, but because she truly wanted to understand. These young people had overcome poverty, violence, family instability, educational inequity, barriers she'd never faced once. Yet they radiated hope, determination, and resilience that put her own privileged struggles into stark, humbling perspective. When the auction began, Victoria bid on and won a package of mentorship program sponsorships without hesitation. But she knew the real commitment wasn't the check she wrote. It was the promises she'd made to Elena tonight. As the evening wound down, Marcus appeared at her elbow, his expression pleased but not congratulatory or effusive. "You did well tonight," he said simply. "But tonight was easy. It's tomorrow and next week that matter most. Showing up once is performance. Showing up repeatedly over time is transformation that becomes character built slowly. I'll be watching to see which one you choose when the initial excitement fades and the hard work begins." 3 months later, Victoria stood outside a community center in the Bronx, her heart racing with anticipation. She'd been meeting with Elena weekly, coffee shops, campus visits, business plan brainstorming sessions that inspired her. But today was different. Elena had invited her to see the neighborhood she came from, where dreams were born. The building was weathered but loved, covered in vibrant murals painted by local youth expressing hope and struggle. Children played basketball on cracked courts, their laughter rising above the sounds of traffic and urban life. This was a world Victoria had driven past countless times without seeing, without acknowledging its existence truly. "Welcome to my home," Elena said, pride and vulnerability mixing in her voice as she gestured to the scene. "It's not fancy, but it's real. Real people, real community, real potential waiting for the right investment." Victoria looked around with eyes that had learned to see differently over these transformative past months. She saw hardship, yes, but also resilience, creativity, and the kind of strength born from necessity and survival. "It's beautiful," she said honestly, meaning the spirit of the place more than its physical structures alone. Elena smiled. The trust between them, having grown steadily through consistent presence and genuine mutual respect. Inside the community center, Elena introduced Victoria to the after-school program she'd helped create and sustain. Teenagers worked on homework, practiced presentations, learned coding on donated computers that ran slowly but worked. "This is where I spent every day after school growing up," Elena explained, her voice thick with emotion. "Mrs. Patterson, the director, believed in me when my teachers had already written me off as another statistic. She saw potential where others saw a poor kid from a broken home destined for failure or poverty. Everything I am started here, in this room, with someone taking time to see me as fully human." An elderly black woman approached, her face lighting up with affection when she saw Eleanor standing there proudly. "My star student, Mrs. Patterson said, embracing Elena with the warmth of a grandmother loving her grandchild. "And you must be Victoria. Elena's told me so much about you and the mentorship you've been providing consistently. Thank you for investing in her future. This girl's going to change the world, mark my words firmly." Victoria felt humbled in the presence of this woman who'd given everything to children others had forgotten completely. "I think Elena and I are teaching each other," Victoria said. "She's changed my life as much as I hope to help hers." Mrs. Patterson showed Victoria around the center, classrooms with peeling paint, but walls covered in student achievements. "We operate on donations and grants, always one funding crisis away from closing our doors permanently," she explained. "But we've helped over 300 kids get into college, trade schools, or stable employment over 30 years. Every child who walks through those doors gets the same message. You matter, you're capable, you're worth investing in fully. Society may have written you off, but we see your potential and we'll fight alongside you to reach it." Victoria listened, an idea forming in her mind that she'd been considering for weeks but hadn't yet voiced aloud. She'd been learning about non-profit management, grant writing, sustainable funding models through her work with Elena. Her business expertise, her connections, her resources, they could make a real difference here beyond just writing checks. "What if you had stable funding?" Victoria asked carefully. "Enough to operate without constant crisis management stress? What would you do differently if money wasn't the limiting factor constraining your vision and programs?" Mrs. Patterson's eyes widened, hope and skepticism warring on her weathered face lined with decades of hard work. "I'd expand our hours, hire more tutors, create a college counseling program, offer mental health services to our kids." Over the next hour, Victoria took notes, as Mrs. Patterson outlined dreams she'd carried for years without resources. Elena contributed ideas from her business studies, bridging practical planning with lived experience and community knowledge. They talked about partnerships with local businesses, internship programs, scholarship funds, family support services comprehensively. Victoria's mind raced with possibilities. This was real work, meaningful impact, purpose beyond social performance and galas. "I'd like to help make this happen," Victoria said finally, her voice steady with commitment and genuine conviction. "Not just as a donor, but as a partner, invested in the long-term sustainability and success of this vital program. I can contribute funding, yes, but also business planning, operational systems, connections to corporations for partnerships. I want to work alongside you, learn from your experience, help build something that outlasts all of us here." Mrs. Patterson looked at Eleanor, who nodded with a smile that spoke of trust earned through months of consistent showing up. "We'd welcome that partnership," Mrs. Patterson said, extending her hand. "But this work isn't glamorous or easy always. It's phone calls to parents, grant applications, broken heating systems, budget struggles, heartbreak when kids fail or struggle. Are you really ready for that level of commitment beyond the initial enthusiasm and good intentions you're feeling now?" Victoria thought about the past 3 months. Early morning meetings with Elena, late nights researching educational equity issues. She'd stepped back from her social circle, declined luxury vacations, restructured her priorities around meaning rather than status. Her old friends thought she'd lost her mind, trading galas for community centers and designer shopping for grant proposal writing. But she'd never felt more alive, more purposeful, more connected to something bigger than her own narrow existence before. "I'm ready," she said with certainty born from tested commitment rather than fleeting enthusiasm or guilt-driven impulse. "I've spent 3 months learning what real work feels like, what genuine service requires beyond writing checks. I won't pretend I understand everything about this world. I'm still learning, still making mistakes, still growing daily. But I'm committed for the long haul, not just until the novelty wears off or something more interesting appears. This matters. These kids matter. This community matters. And I want to be part of the solution consistently." Elena squeezed her hand, the gesture simple but loaded with meaning about how far they'd both come together. Mrs. Patterson's eyes glistened with tears. She quickly blinked away, hardened by years of disappointment from broken promises. "Then, welcome to the family," she said. "Let's get to work building something beautiful together for these deserving children." That evening, Victoria returned to the Grand Meridian, but not to her presidential suite as a guest anymore. She'd moved out weeks ago, taking a modest apartment in Brooklyn closer to Elena's neighborhood and the community center. Tonight, she was meeting Marcus for dinner, their monthly check-in that had become a cherished ritual of accountability. She found him in the hotel restaurant, sitting not in the VIP section, but at a regular table by the window. "How was the community center visit?" he asked, his eyes warm with the genuine interest of a mentor invested deeply. Victoria shared everything: the facility, the programs, Mrs. Patterson's vision, her own commitment to partnership and service. Marcus listened intently, asking questions that pushed her thinking, challenging assumptions, celebrating progress made steadily. "I'm proud of you," he said finally, words he'd never spoken lightly or without complete sincerity behind them. "Not because you're doing charity work, but because you've genuinely transformed how you see people and yourself fundamentally. The woman who screamed at me in this lobby 6 months ago wouldn't recognize who you're becoming daily." Victoria felt tears forming, not of shame anymore, but of gratitude for the hard mercy he'd shown that night. "You could have just thrown me out, banned me, let me continue being horrible without consequences," she said softly. "I could have," Marcus agreed. "But my wife taught me that people are capable of change when given real opportunity. She believed everyone deserves a chance to see themselves clearly and choose differently based on that honest awareness. You reminded me of myself 30 years ago, so focused on wealth and status that I'd lost my humanity completely. It took almost losing everything to wake me up to what actually mattered in life, beyond money and power. I saw something in you that night. Beneath the cruelty, I glimpsed someone who could be better if shown the way. I'm glad I took that chance, glad you accepted the challenge, glad you've continued showing up beyond initial discomfort." He paused, then added with characteristic directness, "But the real test is still ahead of you continually. Sustained commitment over years, not months. That's where most people fail when enthusiasm fades into routine difficulty. Can you keep showing up for Elena when she frustrates you? For the community center when progress is painfully slow? When the novelty completely wears off and this work becomes grinding, unglamorous labor that nobody applauds anymore?" Victoria met his gaze steadily, understanding the weight of what he was asking and acknowledging honestly. "I don't know," she admitted, "but I'm committed to trying every day, even when it's hard or thankless work." Marcus nodded approvingly at her honesty rather than false promises or performative certainty she couldn't guarantee. That's the right answer. Commitment to trying, not claims of perfection you can't possibly sustain over time. The work you're doing matters, Victoria, not just for Elena or the community center kids, but for you. You're building character through service, discovering purpose beyond consumption, creating legacy beyond wealth accumulation alone. That's what my wife meant about power with perspective, using privilege to lift others rather than dominate them. Their food arrived, brought by a server Marcus greeted warmly by name, asking about her family with genuine interest. Victoria watched him interact with the same respect he showed to corporate executives and wealthy hotel guests equally. This was the lesson underneath all the others. Every person deserves dignity, regardless of their position or circumstances. She thought about Maria, Sarah, James, people who'd shown her grace when she deserved condemnation and rejection. They taught her that character isn't about titles or bank accounts, but about how you treat people daily. "I want to work here," Victoria said suddenly, surprising herself with the declaration spoken aloud impulsively. Marcus raised his eyebrows questioningly, setting down his fork to give her his complete attention and focus. "Not as a guest, not even in management," Victoria clarified, her idea crystallizing as she spoke it into existence. "I want to work the door like you do, see people, serve them, stay grounded in reality beyond boardrooms. Maybe one day a week, alongside whatever work I'm doing with the Foundation and Community Center partnership. I need that reminder, that connection, to keep me from slipping back into old patterns of entitlement and blindness. The door is where I learn to see people. I want to keep practicing that vision, keep developing that muscle. Marcus studied her face, looking for performance or self-flagellation, but finding instead genuine desire for growth. "That's not penance," he said carefully. "You understand that, right? This isn't about punishing yourself forever ongoing. You've already changed, already made amends through changed behavior and sustained commitment to better choices daily. Working the door should be about maintaining perspective, not eternal guilt for past mistakes you can't undo anyway." Victoria shook her head, trying to find words for what she felt deep in her transformed heart and soul. "It's not guilt," she said slowly. "It's gratitude for the lesson, for the people, for the chance to see clearly. I don't ever want to forget what I learned, who taught me, why it mattered to break open my privileged perspective." Marcus smiled, genuine warmth spreading across his features, like sunrise breaking over distant mountains at dawn. "Then welcome to the team," he said. "Wednesday evenings, you'll work alongside Miguel at the valet stand initially. Learn from him like you learned from Maria, Sarah, and James during that first transformative day here. Every staff member has wisdom to offer if you approach them with humility and genuine willingness to learn. This isn't about you becoming a doorman, it's about you remaining human despite privilege and power you possess. That's the hardest work there is, and it requires constant vigilance, regular practice, sustained commitment over years." They finished dinner, talking about foundation business, Elena's progress, community center plans, and life beyond work. As Victoria prepared to leave, she saw her old friend Cynthia entering the lobby with a group of laughing women. They looked exactly as she had 6 months ago, expensive, entitled, dismissive of the staff serving them with care. For a moment, Victoria felt the pull of that old life, the comfort of familiar patterns and unexamined privilege. But then she saw Maria across the lobby, finishing her shift, and their eyes met with mutual recognition and respect. That connection, real, earned, meaningful, was worth more than anything her old life could offer moving forward now. 1 year after that fateful night, when Victoria had screamed at a doorman who owned the hotel, she stood at the entrance of the Grand Meridian, wearing the crisp uniform she'd once dismissed with contempt. It was Wednesday evening, her regular shift, and she opened doors with the same care Marcus had shown her. A limousine pulled up, and a woman in designer clothes emerged, already talking loudly on her phone. Victoria recognized the type immediately. She'd been that woman, living in a bubble of privilege and entitlement completely. "Watch the bag!" the woman snapped without looking, thrusting expensive luggage at Victoria dismissively and rudely. For a split second, Victoria felt anger rising, the instinct to respond with the authority she actually possessed here. She could reveal herself as a major foundation donor, a friend of the owner, someone this woman shouldn't dismiss. But then she remembered Maria's grace, Sarah's patience, James's wisdom about choosing kindness over ego always. "Of course, ma'am," Victoria said with genuine warmth. "Welcome to the Grand Meridian. Enjoy your stay with us." The woman barely acknowledged her, already complaining about traffic to whoever was unfortunate enough to be listening. Victoria carried the bags inside, feeling not resentment, but compassion for someone still trapped in the prison she'd escaped. Marcus appeared in the lobby, no longer in disguise, but in his executive attire after a board meeting. He watched Victoria handle the difficult guest with practiced grace, a knowing smile crossing his weathered face. "She reminds you of someone?" he asked quietly when Victoria returned to her post at the entrance doors. "She reminds me of who I was," Victoria admitted. "Unhappy, disconnected, treating people poorly to feel powerful somehow. I want to tell her there's a better way, that wealth without empathy is a prison, not freedom. But she has to learn that lesson herself, just like I did through experience, rather than words alone." Marcus nodded thoughtfully, his eyes reflecting memories of his own journey from poverty to wealth to wisdom. Maybe she will, maybe she won't. That's her choice, and her path to walk in her own time. All you can do is treat her with dignity regardless of how she treats you in return consistently. That's the real power, choosing kindness not because people deserve it, but because you value it inherently. You've learned that lesson well, Victoria. Your wife would be proud, she said, then corrected herself quickly. I mean, your late wife, Marcus. I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to overstep or presume inappropriately. Marcus held up a hand, his expression gentle rather than offended by her sincere but awkward acknowledgement. Don't apologize. She would be proud of you, and she'd be glad I took the risk of teaching you instead of punishing. Lynn believed everyone carried light inside them, even when it was buried under layers of pain and poor choices. She'd say you just needed someone to help you remember your own light, your own capacity for goodness and growth. Victoria felt tears forming at the generosity of this man who had every right to have destroyed her reputation instead. I think about that night often, she confessed. How differently my life could have gone if you'd chosen differently. You could have humiliated me publicly, made me a cautionary tale, ended my social standing and business reputation completely. Instead, you gave me a gift, the chance to see myself clearly and choose to become someone better. I'll never be able to repay that kindness, Marcus. It changed everything about my life and who I am now. Marcus shook his head, dismissing the idea of debt or obligation between them with characteristic humility. You've already repaid it by paying it forward. Elena, the community center, the kids you're mentoring and supporting. That's how grace works. Someone shows it to you, and you extend it to others, creating ripples outward infinitely. A familiar voice called out from across the lobby, full of excitement and youthful energy that brightened the space. Victoria! Mr. Chen! Eleanor rushed over, her arms full of textbooks and her face glowing with unmistakable happiness. She'd just finished her first year at Columbia with a perfect GPA and multiple scholarship offers for continued studies. I got the internship, she announced, practically bouncing with excitement impossible to contain or suppress completely. The Social Enterprise Accelerator accepted my application. I'll be developing the community center expansion this summer. They loved the business plan we created together, Victoria. This is really happening. Everything we've been working toward. Victoria pulled her into a tight embrace, pride swelling in her chest like physical warmth spreading through her body. This young woman had become like family over the past year, not a project or charity case, but genuine partnership. They'd challenged each other, learned from each other, built something meaningful together through consistent effort and care. I'm so proud of you, Victoria said, her voice thick with emotion. You've worked so incredibly hard for this. Elena pulled back, her eyes shining with tears of joy and gratitude that needed to be expressed aloud. I couldn't have done it without you, without both of you, she added, including Marcus in her grateful acknowledgement. You did this yourself, Marcus corrected gently but firmly. We just opened a few doors along the way. Your intelligence, determination, vision, that's all you, Elena. Never forget that, or diminish your own achievements here. The world will try to credit your success to charity or luck rather than your merit and hard work. Don't let anyone, including yourself, steal your accomplishment by attributing it to anyone other than you. Elena nodded, absorbing the wisdom even as she maintained her gratitude for the support she'd received consistently. Maria appeared then, having finished her shift, her face radiating maternal pride that needed no words to express. My daughter, the college graduate, she said, embracing Eleanor with fierce love and protective tenderness always present. And soon, the social entrepreneur, Elena added. Mama, I'm going to make you so proud with what we build together. You already make me proud every single day, Maria replied, cupping her daughter's face with work-worn, gentle hands. Not because of grades or internships or achievements, but because of who you are, kind, wise, strong, compassionate always. That's what matters most in this life, Not what you accomplish, but who you become in the process of accomplishing it. Victoria watched this exchange, learning yet another lesson about what truly constituted success and meaning in life. Later that evening, after her shift ended, Victoria walked through Central Park toward her Brooklyn apartment home. The city sparkled with evening lights, alive with millions of stories unfolding simultaneously in the urban sprawl. She thought about the journey of this past year, the transformation from entitled socialite to engaged citizen, committed fully. It hadn't been easy. She'd stumbled, made mistakes, faced uncomfortable truths about herself and her privilege constantly. She'd lost friends who couldn't understand her new priorities, who thought she'd become preachy or self-righteous suddenly. Her family had been confused by her choices, giving up luxury suites for modest apartments, galas for community centers, but she'd gained something infinitely more valuable: purpose, connection, the deep satisfaction of meaningful work daily. She pulled out her phone and scrolled through photos from the past year, captured and saved carefully. Elena's first day at Columbia, both of them nervous and excited about this new chapter beginning together. The community center expansion groundbreaking, Mrs. Patterson crying happy tears as they turned the first ceremonial shovel. Maria, Sarah, and James at the foundation's anniversary dinner, laughing together like the family they'd become. Marcus at the door of his hotel, teaching a new employee the same lessons he'd once taught her about seeing people. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, and she opened it with curious anticipation. "Hi, Victoria. This is Amanda Chen, Marcus's daughter. Dad told me about your journey this past year. I run a non-profit focused on economic mobility and wondered if you'd be interested in joining our advisory board. We need people who understand both wealth and poverty, who've done the hard work of examining their own privilege. Dad said you're one of the most transformed people he's ever met. Would love to talk if you're interested." Victoria stared at the message, feeling the familiar flutter of purpose calling her toward new, meaningful challenges ahead. A year ago, she would have joined boards for status, for networking, for the social cachet it provided selfishly. Now she evaluated opportunities based on impact, alignment with values, genuine contribution she could make to the mission. She typed back, "I'd be honored to learn more. When can we meet to discuss the work and vision?" The response came quickly. "Tomorrow, 10 a.m., Community Center in the Bronx. I want to see your work firsthand." Victoria smiled, appreciating Amanda's approach. No fancy offices, but meeting her where the real work happened daily. "Perfect. See you there," she replied, already looking forward to this new opportunity for service and growth continuously. As she climbed the stairs to her modest apartment, Victoria heard her neighbor's door open behind her. Mrs. Washington, an elderly widow who reminded her of Mrs. Patterson, poked her head out with a warm smile. "Victoria, dear, I made too much soup again. Would you like some for dinner tonight?" A year ago, Victoria wouldn't have known her neighbors' names, wouldn't have accepted food from strangers ever. Now she smiled gratefully, genuinely touched by the simple kindness of community connection and neighborly care. "I'd love that, Mrs. Washington. Thank you. Can I help you with anything while I'm here?" They spent an hour together, Victoria helping organize medications, while Mrs. Washington shared stories from her youth. These small moments of connection, they were the fabric of real life, the kind she'd missed living in isolated luxury. When she finally entered her own apartment, simple but filled with photos and memories from meaningful experiences, Victoria felt the deep contentment that comes from living in alignment with values rather than in pursuit of status. She made tea and sat by the window, watching the neighborhood come alive with evening activity below. Children playing, families returning home, people greeting each other with familiarity and genuine warmth. This was community. Victoria opened her laptop and began writing, a habit she'd developed to process her ongoing transformation journey. She wrote about the woman who dismissed her today, about seeing her former self in that entitled stranger clearly. She wrote about Elena's success, about the expansion plans for the community center, about Amanda's invitation to serve. But mostly, she wrote about gratitude, for Marcus's hard mercy, for Maria's grace, for Sarah's patience, for James's wisdom, for the gift of being broken open so she could be rebuilt into someone capable of genuine connection and service. "Dear Marcus," she typed, deciding to send him her reflections rather than just journaling privately tonight. "A year ago, I stood in your office learning that the doorman I'd abused was actually the owner I'd wanted to meet. I thought that revelation was the lesson. Karma, instant justice, the universe teaching me humility through ironic twist. But the real lesson came after, in the patient teaching of your staff, in the sustained challenge of choosing differently daily. You didn't just show me I was wrong. You showed me there was a better way to be right, through service and compassion. Thank you for seeing potential in someone who deserved only consequences, for investing in transformation over punishment. I hope I'm becoming someone who honors that investment by extending the same grace to others, moving forward always." She hit send and closed the laptop, feeling the peaceful exhaustion of a day well lived with purpose and intention. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The meeting with Amanda, her mentoring session with Elena, her weekly community center shift. But tonight she could rest, knowing she was building something meaningful, becoming someone who made the world slightly better. Her phone buzzed with Marcus's response, characteristically brief but deeply felt. "The student has become the teacher. Proud of you." Victoria smiled, set her phone aside, and looked at the framed photo on her nightstand, her first day working the door. She stood beside Marcus, both in uniform, both smiling, mentor and student, teacher and learner, human beings choosing kindness. That photo reminded her daily that transformation was possible, that people could change if given the right opportunity and grace. She was living proof, the customer who'd mistreated the doorman, not knowing he was the owner, receiving instant karma. But the karma wasn't punishment, it was the gift of perspective, the chance to see clearly and choose differently going forward. And she chose differently every single day now. Not perfectly, but persistently, building character through service and sustained effort. The journey from entitled cruelty to empowered compassion had been painful, humbling, and absolutely worth every difficult step taken. And tomorrow she would wake up and choose it all again, because this was what it meant to be truly, meaningfully, powerfully alive.